You're listening to the Just Japan podcast. Everything you want to know about Japan.
Well, hey there, folks, and welcome to episode number 163 of the Just Japan podcast. Everything you want to know about Japan. My name is Kevin O'Shea. I am the host of the Just Japan podcast, a once upon a time weekly podcast about all things Japan. It's been more than a month, folks. We're back for episode number 163. My apologies for not being here in such a long time. And this week, it's a solo show. It's just Kevin talking about some things that have been going on in life. The reason why there has not been an episode in a month. Some updates on my move to China, Beijing, China, and some more stuff about the podcast itself. Well, hey there, folks. It's Kevin. Back again after more than a month. You guys not knowing where the heck I am. So this is another mobile recording, and I am coming to you from Kobe, Japan. It is the evening of July 21st. I realized that the last episode of the Just Japan podcast dropped June 20th, so it's a little more than a month ago, and I apologize, but life has been more than crazy. Okay, so let's get into it. This is going to be, first of all, a short episode. It's just me. I'm out walking. We got a big episode planned for next week. I've got a lot of friends of the show coming on the podcast for kind of a kickoff, see you later Japan type episode. And when I say see you later Japan, I mean physically I'm leaving Japan. But of course, that's not a real see you later Japan. So, what has been going on? Why have I not been podcasting? Well, as you guys know, after 9+ years here in Japan, the O'Shea family is packing up, moving on to different pastures. We're moving to Beijing. That's right. And for those of you who may not have been aware of this, and you're saying, hey, what the heck? I'll let you know something. What I do for a living is, I'm an international school teacher. Not an English teacher. It's a very different kind of beast. So I am a homeroom teacher in Canada, an elementary school teacher. That's what I've been doing for my time here in Japan, and that's what I'm going to be doing in Beijing. So it's a great new professional opportunity that is good enough for my family and I to uproot ourselves from our life here in Japan and move to China. Basically, we would have been fools to not take the opportunity. So that's what we're doing, and we're kind of in the home court press, the full court press. I'm not sure of the terminology, but we're going to be leaving very, very soon. Just walking by some people having a chit chat outside. So basically, the last month or so, more than a month, I've been up to my eyeballs in trying to get my visa prepared. Now, getting a working visa in China is not an easy endeavor, especially when you have a family, you've got dependents, you've got a wife and children. And what I've come to discover, and this is something I plan to blog about in detail, because I couldn't find, one of the things that was like the most frustrating about this whole kind of visa preparation experience is the fact that there was almost zilch information out there online. I did Google search after Google search, and I couldn't find any answers to the questions I had. Couldn't find them on government websites, the Chinese government, the Japanese government, the Canadian government. So many emails between Chinese consulates, Chinese embassy, Canadian consulates. So many phone calls to the Canadian embassy. So much confusion, frustration. And at the end of the day, I simply couldn't get the things I needed to get done here in Japan as a Canadian. And I ended up having to hire a private company to send a bunch of my documents back to Canada and have a bunch of things done in Canada, because literally could not do them here in Japan. And it was incredibly frustrating. Definitely many, many, many sleepless nights, many, many restless nights. But if I look at the positive side, it helped me lose a lot of weight, because I had so much anxiety and nausea that I didn't want to eat. Wait, is that a good thing? Maybe that's not a good thing, but I have slimmed down a bit. So finally, things are moving. Things, again, are in the home stretch. My last day of work here in Japan will be July 31st. And basically what's happening is I work at an international school, and this is not common, that goes by the Japanese school year. The vast majority, if not almost all international schools, go by the kind of like an North American school year, American-Canadian school year. So I initially was only supposed to be kind of like a temp teacher. Well, first of all, I announced at the end of the school year last year, actually quite a bit before the end of the school year, that I would not be returning to my school, because basically I'm moving on professionally to another school. But because of this weird crossover thing, the fact that I'm working with a Japanese school year, which is April to March, and most international schools go end of August to June, there would have been many months of me with no salary. Now my school was definitely cool enough to say, hey Kevin, we value you, please stay with us until the end of July. I thought I would be kind of like a support teacher, kind of a lot less responsibility than a homeroom teacher. But things kind of at the end of the day, as they happen in kind of international school systems, maybe people who are hired can't make it there in time, people who are hired can't make it, there's all kinds of stuff going on. I ended up being a homeroom teacher since April. So I wasn't really prepared for that going into it. I'd been, of course, a homeroom teacher for many years, but being under the assumption that I was going to be a support teacher, I wasn't really prepared for it. And on top of that, the current class I have is far more challenging than any class I've had in a few years. Just with the, and by the way, guys, you're hearing traffic noises. I'm by a big road now. Just the mix of students I had, the different types of students, personalities, exceptionalities, conditions, has been making for an extremely challenging, trying class. So that, combined with all of the stress from the work visa, a lot of stress from work, it's been really rough. It's been really rough. And that's why you haven't heard the podcast, because I get home at the end of the day, and some of them have been late days. I get my kids into bed, spend some time with my family, a little bit of time with my family, get the kids into bed, tuck them in, read them a story, they go to sleep, and then I'm up writing emails to my school, the Canadian Embassy, travel agents, couriers, Chinese consulates, blah, 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 online, trying to research visa stuff, trying to learn a little bit about Beijing. And I really, to be honest, guys, I haven't spent any time learning anything about the city I'm going to be calling home for the next 2 years. But that's why I haven't been podcasting. But one thing you may notice is, for some of you out there, I kind of got my social media start as Busan Kevin on YouTube, youtube.com/Busan Kevin, a YouTuber who video blogged about life in Busan, South Korea, where I lived, then Ottawa, Canada, where I lived, and then for the past many years, Kobe, Japan. Well, I pretty much gave up the world of video blogging a few years back. And you guys will know I made a whole episode about why I did that. Okay, had to mostly do with a not so nice guy out there on the internet. But that's an episode I made about with Scott on a Chill in Kansai, where we talked about surprises you get when you live a life online. But that's a whole other story. But recently I started video blogging again for two reasons. Number one, I've been wanting to kind of capture my last days in Japan with my family And they're kind of like really home family videos. So I can watch back, watch them back and be nostalgic. Number two, it's much easier to do than podcasting because I'm simply recording everything on my iPhone 6S and then editing everything using iMovie on my iPhone and then uploading to YouTube directly from the phone itself. So it's very simple. We just go out for the day and I just film all these little snippets throughout the day, little bits, and I just throw them together very quickly. No music, no this or that, and then I render it, upload it directly to YouTube. And that's definitely been making a lot of my old YouTube viewers happy. I'm going to put links to some of my recent videos, by the way, in the show notes at justjapanstuff.com. So it's definitely been making them happy. A lot of people have been surprised. And, of course, I noticed that the more videos I put up, the more views that they're getting. And actually, I got to admit, I've been having fun creating YouTube content again. And I'm hoping that once I get to Beijing, I can create more fun YouTube content. Because there's not a lot of it out there from Beijing. So, okay, I'm about to pop into a convenience store. I'll continue this recording when I come out. Okay, so convenience store done. Had to go to an international bank machine. By the way, here's a quick Japan tip for you. You're visiting Japan, you're traveling to Japan on holiday, or you're new to Japan. If you have a bank account in another country, probably the best way to withdraw money is from 7-Bank. 7-Bank is the 7-Eleven bank system. So basically go to any 7-Eleven and their bank machines will accept more international cards than any other bank machine in Japan. A lot of bank machines, even from the big banks, don't accept anything aside from domestic cards. So there's a little Japan hack for all you guys out there. Okay, so back to what the heck I was talking about before. I've been explaining why I started YouTubing again, why I haven't been podcasting. Just walked up a few flights of stairs, so I'm now winded, which means I'm in crap shape. But yeah, so essentially life has been turned upside down for me. And if I'm not doing all that work at night, if I do have a few nights a week where I do have a bit of downtime, that's exactly what I want. I want downtime. So I don't want to create content because it takes a lot of energy. Yeah, so, but let's talk a little bit more about my move. Now, I'm really, really, really excited about my new job. My daughter, and my wife is too. My wife is very excited because we both want to change of pace. We want a big change of pace, and we want opportunities for our children. And we now actually have an opportunity for our children in their education that we definitely never would be able to afford here. Both of my kids are going to be attending an amazing international school as full-time students. A very multicultural school with so many different nationalities in the student body and ethnicities, and it's going to be really amazing. It's going to be all in English, 100% in English. They will be taking, I know my son Kai is going to be taking Mandarin, he's going to have a Mandarin class every day, which is really cool. So Kai actually just turned 7 years old last week in July, so, well, it's July now. So technically in the new school year, he would actually be in grade 2 as a Canadian kid. But right now in the Japanese school system, he's in grade 1. Now, one thing that I'm very happy that the school admissions staff have thought about, and I had a lot of anxiety about Kai entering grade 2, because although he speaks English fairly well, he has only ever spoken English or really learned English, used English in our house here in Japan. So he's fully immersed in a Japanese world because he's in Japan. He went to a Japanese kindergarten. He attends a Japanese elementary school. So he basically uses English at home, which means he can speak English, but he can't read and write English. Well, not so well. I mean, we spent some time trying to teach him, and he knows his CVC words, his consonant, vowel, consonant words. He knows quite a few sight words. He's enthusiastic about it, but of course, he's not at the level of a kid, a contemporary in Canada or America. And What's going to happen is that when he starts at his new school, he'll actually be in grade 1. And that also has to do with the fact that it's something called an IB school, an International Baccalaureate School. They have a very inquiry-based type of curriculum, and inquiry-based learning is all about being independent, about exploring and asking questions and learning on your own, doing a lot of self-learning, which is completely counter to everything in the Japanese education system. So inquiry is a skill that's going to be very new to Kai. Creative problem solving. Got to admit, that's not something that's taught in Japanese kindergartens or in the elementary schools. So it's going to be a challenge for Kai. And the school administrators and myself were worried that if he missed that year 1, that grade 1, those inquiry skills, that foundation, that key foundation that you learn in that year, that starting off grade 2, with the language challenge, as well as not having the inquiry skills, it would be really overwhelming for Kai. So I'm really happy. He's going to be able to jump ahead in time, but he'll be the oldest in his class, and it's going to be good for him. Now, my daughter, Rena, she just turned 4. She knows she's moving to China, but she doesn't understand what that means. Today was her last day of school, but she doesn't really understand what that means. So for her, in some ways it's going to be an easier transition for her because she's kind of oblivious to what's going on in a way. Now, we have a moving company coming next week. We're shipping a lot of stuff over. We're not shipping furniture, but we're shipping a lot of things. We want to be comfortable. We're going to be there for a few years. We're moving a family. We're uprooting our kids from their lives, their stable, comfortable lives, to make this move. So we want them to have the toys they love. My wife, if you guys follow me closely on social media, on Facebook especially, you'll know my wife is an extremely talented clothing maker, children's clothing maker and designer. She makes amazing clothing for kids, and she wants to continue that in China. So she's got some pretty great sewing machines that she wants to bring with her, and I absolutely support her 150 million% in her endeavors. So we're going to be shipping a bunch of stuff over, and we're going to be using a shipping company. They're going to come over and check things out, and then in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, pack stuff up, fill out the customs forms, and put everything into a truck, and eventually that'll go onto a ship and end up in Beijing. So yeah, it's a crazy time, it's a busy time. And one thing that's going to be fun and exciting is next week, I'm going to have a panel of fun, friendly guests who you know from the past episodes of the Just Japan podcast. They're going to come on, and they're going to entertain you. We'll entertain you about Japan, with Japan stuff. And also, hopefully, and I have been a slacker in getting back to James Winovich of the ALT Insider podcast, but he wants to get me on for an exit interview, so to speak, about me leaving Japan, and I definitely want to get on the ALT Insider podcast again and talk about that. So that's where we stand, folks. That's where we stand tonight, this evening, as I walk outside in the hot, nasty, sweaty weather, recording this podcast episode. Yeah, so there we go. Life in Japan. It's going to be ending soon in a way, but in many ways we'll be continuing because we plan to come back here for Christmas holiday. We're going to be back here for next summer holiday for a couple of weeks, and then off to Canada for a month or so. And yeah, so of course, my wife's from here. My kids were born here. Kobe is their hometown. So we'll be back here hopefully, and in December, my wife and kids will definitely be here for sure. And hopefully I can join them too. And we'll be hanging out right here in Kobe and Osaka. Oh yeah. Folks, well, thank you so much for listening to episode number 163 of the Just Japan podcast. Everything you want to know about Japan. Next week, we're going to be coming out with a really smash-tacular episode of the Just Japan podcast. Kind of a reunion show with a bunch of former guests coming on, talking about Japan, talking about cool things, memories, this and that. It's not a goodbye forever. It's just a goodbye for now. That's what that will be. And once I land in Japan, I should say China, and get settled in Beijing, hopefully within weeks or a month or so, the Just Japan podcast will start being broadcasted right back to you into your earbuds, earworms, your headphone thingies. So of course you can always follow the Just Japan podcast on social media. Facebook.com/JustJapanStuff. The home of the Just Japan podcast is, of course, JustJapanStuff.com. You can find us on all major podcatchers like iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud and Libsyn and all of that. Follow me on Twitter at JLandKev, on Instagram at JLandKev. The best places to find me are on Twitter and Facebook, of course. All those links will be in the show notes under episode number 163 of the podcast at justjapanstuff.com. And there'll be a bunch of other links in there and some links to, YouTube videos I made recently and all that stuff. And go check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BusanKevin. All right, guys, that's it. Another episode of the Just Japan podcast is done. It's in the bag. It's finished. It's complete. Wherever you are in the world, folks, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast. And wherever you are, I hope you're healthy. Hope you're happy. And I'll be talking to you real soon.